Hi, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Jennifer, and I'm here at English in the City conducting another focus activity. Thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. This is a new experience for all of us having these focus activities and English lessons online. And it's in hopes of keeping everybody in touch while we're at home, a little bit preoccupied with other things, but at least we can keep our language skills up and constant while we're going through this period of time. Okay, I want to welcome everybody this afternoon. Today we are doing focus activity 6-7, observations. Now, when we observe something, what does that mean? It means that we're looking at something. Hi, Giacomo, how are you? It's good to see you today. Hi, Elena, welcome back, everybody. Today, we're talking about observations. Now, to observe means to look at, but not just to see. Hi, Victoria, how are you? Good afternoon and welcome. Our focus activity for today is observations. When we observe something, it's not as casual as a glance, a fast glance, or a quick look. To observe something means to study it with your eyes, to look carefully and consider its characteristics, its particularities, and its specialties. So in our focus activity today, we're going to consider asking questions, sequencing adverbs using past simple and past continuous. Now, most of us know how to ask questions, but we're also going to examine more carefully sequencing adverbs. When do we use them? And why do we use them? And also the importance of these sequencing adverbs when we're using past simple and past continuous. Before we get started today in our focus, let's consider the two grammar tenses, past simple and past continuous. When do we use each? And what is the grammar structure of each one? Now, we all know that present simple we use for daily activities. And basically, we just tack an S at the end of a regular verb, if it's third person, of course. But if we're talking about the past simple, what is the regular ending for a verb in the past? And when exactly do we use it? And how is using past simple different from the past continuous? Because they're both in the past. So the time is actually there. The time is before a present event. We're always talking about the past tense. But what's the difference between past simple and past continuous? As you're considering the differences between the two, I'm going to demonstrate, I'm going to put before you an image that I would like you to observe. And we said before that to observe something means to study it with your eyes. So it's not a quick glance or a fast look. I want you to look at this image. Very good, Elena. When we take a regular verb and we put it in the past, the ending is ed for regular verbs. So, for example, if I use the verb listen, I listen to music every day. Yesterday, I listened to the radio. Now, why do I use past simple? I'll say it again. Every day, if I'm talking about daily activities or daily routine, I listen to music every day. I listened to the radio yesterday. And there's a specific reason why it must be past simple. Because we know that we use present simple for daily activities and routines, but we used past simple for an activity in the past. What? Because it's a short action. Very good, Victoria. And as Elena said, past simple, the action is finished. Victoria, you said because we use past simple because it's short. We're going to understand why you said that when we compare past simple and past continuous, because what you said is correct. But when we use past simple and past continuous together, we'll understand which is the short action, which is the long action, and that they're both happening in the past. Okay, so when we're using the past simple, we need to be time specific, whether it's yesterday, last night, 10 minutes ago, 2 years ago. When we have a time reference, we use past simple. Hi, welcome, Yushi. How are you? We use the past simple when we have a specific time, exactly, because otherwise we would use a different tense. I'll give you an example. I've been to London before. Hey, Elisa. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome again to our focus this afternoon. We're talking about observations, okay, and the difference between past simple and past continuous. We said before that past simple we use when actions are finished and there is a time, a specific time reference. I'm assuming that was you, Eliza, right? When we use the past simple, when we have a specific time reference. Hi, Gianmarco, how are you? Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We've just started a few minutes ago, and today we're talking about observations, what it means to observe something. Are you observant? What does it mean to be observant? It means that we take care when we look at something. It means that we study something with our eyes. We consider it and we remember what we've seen. Here on the screen, there is a painting. Before we talk about this painting, wait a minute. I'm going to give you 4 questions that I would like you to consider while you look at this painting. Very good. To be observant, Victoria, means to pay attention to the details. But sometimes you don't always have a lot of time at your disposal. So if you only have a short amount of time to look at something, you have to be very critical and concentrated to remember what it is you're looking at in that short amount of time. So we're going to go back to the image in just a minute, but before we do, let's look over the 4 questions that you need to consider while you're looking at this image. What is the woman at the table kissing? What is on the table? Is there a bird in the picture? Is anyone wearing a hat? Now, if you'd like, you can write the questions down, because once I put the picture back up, you won't have the questions anymore in front of you. While we're looking at the painting, at this image, we want to consider these 4 questions. What is the woman at the table kissing? What is on the table? Is there a bird in the picture? Is anyone wearing a hat? So if you'd like, you can write these questions down quickly. So once we go back to the image, you'll already have the questions in mind to know what you're going to observe while you look at the image. Okay, we ready? Let's go back and take a look at our painting. Here we are. And I'm going to give you 10 seconds to take a look at it. Let your eye wander around while you're looking at it. Try to capture as many details as you can. If you'd like, make a few notes so that you can remember what you have seen. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, I actually gave you a few seconds more to look at the image. Let's see what you can remember from observing the painting. So take a few minutes, recall the image in your mind. And as you answer the questions, just put them down in our little conversation box. And let me know what you remember from the painting or from the image. What is the woman at the table kissing? Do you remember what she was kissing? Was she kissing her hand? Was she kissing a man? Was she kissing a woman? Was she kissing her mom? Was she kissing anybody at all? What was on the table? Very good, Victoria, thank you. The woman was actually kissing a cat. So now if you remember in your mind the image of the woman off to the side, there are bottles on the table. Very good. Do we remember anything else on the table? Thank you, Elena. You too. You also mentioned that the woman is kissing a cat. Excellent, Giacomo. There are women and men wearing hats. There are actually a lot of hats in the picture. Thank you, Victoria. Giacomo says there are bottles on the table. There are bottles of, and Gianmarco says there are bottles of wine on the table. There are some grapes and wine on the table. You guys are very good. And there's also candy. If there are bottles of wine, yes, there are a lot of things on the table. In fact, I was going to mention that. There are fruit, there is fruit on the table. There are bottles on the table. There are glasses, and there are also plates on the table. Now, from the painting that we were observing, do we remember anything else? So we remember the things that we saw, and that there was one woman kissing a cat. Can anyone remember what anyone else was doing? Giacomo mentioned that there were a lot of people wearing hats. What were these people doing? Because remember, you only had 10 to 12 seconds to look at the painting. Can we remember what the people were doing? Because there were a lot of people. Where were they? Does anybody know where they were? Were they at the gas station? Were they online in the post office? Were they at the pharmacy? I don't know. Were they outside? Were they inside? Because there were so many details in that painting, in that image, sometimes when you have to observe and you only have a limited amount of time, they were talking very good. Giacomo and Elena, thank you for your comments. There were a lot of people in this painting, and a lot of them were talking. And they were outside. Excellent. Someone was talking and someone was looking outside. Can you describe the place that we were at? We said that they were outside, but there were also tables because there was food and stuff on the tables. Maybe they're on a, without the sorry. Wait a minute. Looking at the outside. Elisa, where are they? Maybe they're on a rads. What's a rads? Because it looked out, they're outside, they're half outside and half inside. In fact, why don't we take a look? Let's take a look again, see if we can determine where these people are. Here we are. Thank you, at Terrace. Thank you, Elena. Elisa, do you mean a terrace? In fact, looking here, we see a railing. So they're obviously on a terrace of some kind because here they are outside, but here they are half inside. Excellent job, you guys. So I see that all of you are extremely observant. And even though you were only considered a short amount of time, you were able to get a lot of details from that picture. Now, we're going to put that activity off to the side for a minute, and we want to consider using while and when. Now, we know that during this activity today, we're working with two past tenses. We're working with past simple. The regular verbs take the ending ed for past simple, and we use past simple when, as I believe Victoria mentioned, we used past simple when the action is short. Elena said the action is finished. And I believe was Eliza said that the action has a time reference, a specific time reference. So if I did something yesterday, yesterday is my time reference. If I listened to music yesterday, listened is the regular verb that ends in ed, and that's past simple. But when we use past simple and past continuous together, whether in the same phrase, in the same sentence, we also have other words that we use with them. We use when and we use while. But when we use one past tense, and when we use while, we use another. Now, if you notice on your screen, there are 5 sentences, and we want to fill in the blanks with the correct past tense. And here we always have, we're always using while. We're always using while. So which past tense goes with while? And let's fill in the blank. Look through all the sentences. While I was talking with my friend, a man, my handbag. My mom was reading the newspaper while Joe and I. While is for past continuous, and when with past simple. Excellent, Victoria. That's exactly it. And so now, if we understand that we use past continuous with while, and the past continuous is what? Does anyone remember the grammar structure for past continuous? We said that past simple, the ending for regular verbs in the past tense is ed. And then there are irregular verbs like eat, ate, buy, bought. But for regular verbs, it's ed. But how do we make a past continuous sentence? Because we know that continuous is ing. So whatever verb we have ing. But past continuous, we need something else before it, because otherwise it's going to be present continuous. For example, listening, I'm listening to music, was, were, and ing. Fantastic, John Marco, that's exactly it. So when we have past continuous, we have the verb to be in the past, was and were, and we have the gerund form of the verb ing. So I was listening to music yesterday. Very good, Victoria and Elena, thank you. Because we know that present continuous is the verb to be, is an are, and ing. So past continuous has to be the verb to be in the past, was and were, and ing. As I said before, you have 5 sentences in front of you. Let's fill in the blanks together. As you understand what the form of the verb is, just put it in our little conversation box off to the side so we can move pretty quickly, because this isn't a difficult exercise, I'm sure, not for you guys anyway. While I was talking with my friend, a man, my handbag. Now, we're not always going to use past continuous. Thank you, Victoria. A man stole my handbag. Excellent. And here, if we notice in this sentence, we have 2 past tenses. We have while I was talking, blah, 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 blah. A man stole my handbag. And this is where we notice what Victoria had mentioned before, that this past simple part of the sentence, a man stole my handbag, is a short activity. And we're going to find out while I was talking. Obviously, I was in a conversation. I'm talking with my friend, blah, 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 and you'll never believe what happened, and I can't understand why, and what do you think, and how are we going to do this? And while I'm distracted by my conversation, somebody took my bag. Somebody stole my bag. So the short action here actually interrupted the long action of talking. Let's take a look at the second sentence. My mom was reading the newspaper while Joe and I. Just keep in mind that even though all the activities are in the past, you can mix past simple and past continuous. You can mix past continuous and past continuous. So you can have a long action and a short action. You can have a long action and a long action. It depends on the situation that you have in front of you. And we need to be able to describe it while we're observing. Because wherever we are, there is more than one thing happening at one time. So whether or not we're observant means, do we notice everything that's going on around us? We're listening. Thank you, Giacomo. My mom was reading the newspaper while Joe and I were listening to the radio. And here we have two long activities that are happening at the same time. So because someone is reading and someone else is listening simultaneously. Okay, so let's take a look at number 3. The phone rang while I. Is this a long activity or a short activity? You said Victoria was very smart, was having a shower. Thank you, Victoria, because you mentioned before that if we have while, the tense that follows is past continuous. So there's a clue. If you see while, what happens after? If it's past, it has to be past continuous. If you have when, then that's a good indication that what happens after when is going to be past simple. While they were chopping tomatoes, I... And here we have two activities that are happening simultaneously. Is one long and one short? Are they both long? Are they both short? The phone rang is the short activity, and I was having a shower is the long activity. Excellent, Elena. That's exactly right. And Eliza has mentioned that was peeling. So while they were chopping the tomatoes, I was peeling the onion. Does everyone know what it means to chop a tomato? Obviously, these two people, or this group of people, are preparing something. So to chop a tomato means to cut it up into small pieces. You're not smashing it and making puree, but you're chopping up into little pieces of tomato, like little cubes. To peel an onion means basically to take the outer layer of the onion off. Once you peel an onion, then you dice it because you want it to be very, very small pieces. Whereas you chop a tomato up into bigger pieces, you dice an onion into tiny pieces, but before you dice it, you have to peel it. Just a little lesson on preparing food before you cook, okay? Cut. What's the difference between cut? Well, wait a minute. They were chopping tomatoes. You don't cut a tomato because you cut with scissors, Elena, or you can cut with a knife. For example, you can cut steak into strips. You can cut meat. You can cut a tomato into pieces, but if you chop a tomato, then the pieces are actually smaller. So if we want to think in terms of size, cut big, chop medium, dice small. You can cut an onion, cut a tomato. Good to know. Glad I could help, Elena. So cut is big, chop is medium, dice is small. Let's take a look at our fifth question. Let's see if we can fill in the blanks. The dog on me when I the door. Here, do we have two long actions? Do we have a long action and a short action? Because consider all of our long actions. These are activities that it takes an amount of time to do. Because you're talking, you don't say one word, you're talking, you have a conversation, or you're listening for an amount of time, or you're having a shower, or you're peeling an onion. Two short actions, very good, Elena. So the dog, is it a regular verb or an irregular verb? Does anyone know? I know it's not. The dog jumped on me when I opened the door. Fantastic, Giacomo. The dog jumped on me. Jumped and opened, Victoria. Very, very good. The dog jumped on me when I opened the door. And here we have two past simple, two regular verbs. So we have jumped and opened. Notice also the difference here. We have the word when. Jump, jump, jump. Very good, Elena. We have the present of jump, the basic infinitive, jump. We have the past of jump, which is jumped. And we have our past participle, which is jumped, because often the past participle is the same as the past form of the verb. And this is a regular verb. Good job, everybody. Okay, now we're back to the painting that we were looking at before. Now we already practiced observing it, and we already talked about things that we saw, so the objects that we see in the painting, whereas the bottles of wine on the table, the fruit on the table, the glasses and the bowls, the hats on the heads of the men and the women, the cat. What are the people? Now we want to talk about what the people are doing. And since we know already that we use while with past continuous, so we use while with long activities, we use when with short activities, we want to construct phrases that mix long activities and long activities, or a long activity and a short activity. And if you can, even a short and a short. Let's come up with some phrases that describe this picture using past simple and past continuous. And here they've given us an example. Three friends were talking while the young girl was kissing the dog. So here we have three friends talking. They were talking, and the young girl was kissing the dog. I thought it was a cat. Well, the young girl was kissing an animal on the table. Whatever, it's a dog or a cat, it really doesn't matter. What's important is that we have two actions happening simultaneously in the past, so we're using past continuous. Three friends were talking while the young girl was kissing a dog. Let's take a few moments and observe this picture once again. Can we come up with any other phrases that describe this painting? No, I don't want to get rid of it. Hang on just a moment. I'm going to keep the painting up. So this way we can look at it, and then as you come up with phrases that describe the painting with when and while, using past simple and past continuous, you can just write down these sentences and stick them in our conversation box. We already have an example for us. Let's see if I can come up with another example for you. Let's see. A woman was drinking while the man looked off into the distance. That's what I see. So take a few minutes, a few moments, observe the painting once again, and see if you could come up with activities or actions that are happening simultaneously using while or the simple past. So our example here is 3 friends were talking while the young girl was kissing her cat. My example was a girl was drinking while a man was looking off into the distance. Very good. Elena, let's take a look. A young girl with a hat was observing while 5 friends at another table were talking. Fantastic. So here's the young girl observing, and then there are other people at the table who are talking. Very, very good. And Elena used in her sentence while. And we know that we use while when we're using past continuous. Excellent job, Elena. A young girl with a hat was observing while 5 friends were talking. Giacomo added, the girl was looking at the friends who were sitting at the table. Very good. Here we have another example of past continuous. We know that past continuous is the verb to be in the past. So we have was and were, and the gerund form of the verb, ing. So the young girl was observing and 5 friends were talking. The girl was looking and friends were sitting. And Victoria has added, a man was looking at a girl while she was looking at another man. Excellent observation. We have a little bit of a love triangle going on in this painting. A man was looking at a girl while she was looking at another man. Now, it's also important to note that these are all actions, as you've all noted, that are longer actions. So people are looking, people are eating, people are talking, people are drinking. These aren't quick actions that take just a moment, that interrupt another action, which is something that usually when we use past simple and past continuous together, it's because the short action, our past simple action, has interrupted the long action, which is our past continuous action. I'll give you an example of that. While I was taking a shower, or while I was having a shower, the phone rang. The phone rang is the short action that interrupts my long action of taking a shower. Or while I was sleeping, there was someone knocked on the door. While I was sleeping is a long action, and then someone knocked on the door is the short action. Very good. All right. If Giacomo says she was kissing the dog when it started to rain. Very, very good example. Thank you so much, Giacomo, because in this example here, we have a sentence that combines not just past continuous, but past simple as well. She was kissing the dog when it started to rain. If we wanted to use while in this case, we could add while to the beginning. While she was kissing the dog, comma, it started to rain. Now, notice that we don't use when and while together in the same sentence. We use one or the other. So if we have while she was kissing the dog, we don't have when. While she was kissing the dog, it started to rain. If we use when, then we don't have while. She was kissing the dog when it started to rain. And that simply depends on what we want to emphasize in our storytelling, because we know that we tell stories using the past. And by using past continuous and past simple, we give a sequence of events. And that brings us to our next slide. Here we have adverbs of sequencing. Now, what does it mean to have a sequence? A sequence is an order of something. If we have a number sequence, it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And an even number sequence, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. We can have the alphabet is a sequence of letters. If we have a sequence of events, chronological events, let's say, for example, or daily activity events. Then we have words that let the reader know or let the listener know what happened first, what happened after that, and what happened at the end of everything. Without these adverbs of sequencing, we would constantly talking with and then. I woke up and then I made coffee, and then I poured milk in my coffee, and then I took a shower, and then I got dressed, and then I got in my car. In order to avoid that repetition of then, and then, and then, we have specific words that give us a natural sequence of the events that we're talking about in the past. All right. So we have different adverbs at the top of the screen. First, while, after, and then next. And we have 5 sentences underneath. We want to fill in the blank with the correct adverb of sequencing. Okay. Now, we noticed before that while and when, while is also an adverb of sequence. And this indicates when we use while in a sentence that we have 2 actions happening simultaneously. These 2 actions can be one short and one long. They can be too long. But if we use while, we're demonstrating that 2 actions are happening at the same time. As all of you noticed in the picture before. The girl was kissing the dog or the cat. The friends were talking. The man was looking. She was drinking. These are all happening simultaneously at the same time. We have our adverbs of sequencing on the top, and we have our 5 sentences underneath. When you're ready, when you know what word goes in each blank, just type it in and put it in our conversation box, okay? We have our 5 adverbs of sequencing. First, while, after, and then next. And we have our sentences. Number 1, I'm drinking my coffee. I read the newspaper. Are these 2 actions that are happening one after the other at the same time? Is there a specific order? What do you think? When do we use each of these adverbs of sequencing? And depending on the adverb of sequencing we use, it changes the order. That's true. So if we use the wrong one, if we want to imply that something happens, some things are happening at the same time, and we use a different adverb of sequencing, then we change the order of everything. So taking a look at sentence number 1, I'm drinking my coffee. I read the newspaper. In your opinion, are these 2 events, are these 2 actions that are happening at the same time, or is one happening before the other? Well, here, I know in Italy, usually when we drink coffee, it's very, very fast. You have that cup of coffee and you shoot it down. While, very good, Elena, thank you very much. While I'm drinking my coffee, I read the newspaper, which shows that you're drinking your coffee and reading the newspaper at the same time. It's something that's happening simultaneously. Let's take a look at number 2. The thing I do when I get up is wash my face. Because of the first thing I do, thank you very much, Gianmarco. The first thing I do when I get up is wash my face. Now, if we notice here, we have a certain sequence that's happening naturally. Okay, thank you, Victoria. Thank you so much for stopping by anyway. It was great to have you, and we'll see you soon, okay? Have a good afternoon. So, number 2, Gianmarco said that the first thing I do when I get up is wash my face. Let's take a look at number 3. So while I'm drinking my coffee, I read the paper. The first thing I do when I get up is wash my face. Number 3, that I take a shower. we're going to notice that these events, these morning events, it seems like these are our daily activities in the morning. They're already putting themselves in a natural sequence, a natural order. If we think about what we do every morning, what's the first thing we do after? Thank you very much. Number 3, after that, I take a shower. Thank you, John Marco. Thank you, Elena. After that, I take a shower. If we think also of our daily routine, what are the first things that we do when we get up in the morning? The first thing I do is turn on that coffee maker. In fact, I prepare it the night before. When I go into the kitchen, I'm still asleep and I turn on the flame. I get that coffee ready because I can't do anything, nothing, until I have that first cup of coffee. Okay, let's take a look at number 4. I have some breakfast. I have to admit, though, I'm not a breakfast person. I usually drink more coffee in the morning, which probably explains my high anxiety. But I haven't gotten into the habit of eating breakfast every day, which is not a good thing. Breakfast is the most important meal. So number 4, I have some breakfast. Number 4. I used to have breakfast every day. When I lived in the States, I had breakfast every day. There's something about I used to eat bagels every morning, just one bagel, but I'd have bagel with marmalade, or what we do is we have marmalade and cream cheese, which is delicious. I used to get a pumpernickel bagel. Pumpernickel is brown bread. It's dark brown bread. And they would toast it lightly, and I would put strawberry jam and cream cheese on it. Absolutely delicious. That's what I used to have for breakfast when I had breakfast. And then I have some breakfast. Excellent, Giacomo, thank you very much. Next I have breakfast, and number 5, and then I get dressed and go to work. Number 4 is next, but I think also and then can be okay. Yes, Elena, these are a sequence of events that are going to go to the next slide. When we do the next slide, we'll see how to order them. But you could use, and then I have some breakfast. It all depends on the sequence that you want to communicate to your listener. Okay, so these are our 5 sentences using the adverbs of sequencing. While I'm drinking my coffee, I read the paper. These are 2 actions that are happening simultaneously. The first thing I do when I get up is wash my face. So we already have something that's at the top of the list, the first thing that we're doing. After that, I take a shower. By implying after that, it means you already have 2 successive actions. First, and then after. Next, I have some breakfast, and then I get dressed and go to work. So here we see a natural sequence of events. And let's see, now we want to put them in order. Now, when we had the questions, the fill in the blanks in the last slide, 1 to 5, let's see if we can go back. If you remember, I was reminding you that we can see a natural sequence of events happening. So which adverb of sequencing comes first? 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Because we want to put these sentences in chronological order. So we already know that the first thing that happens, obviously, is first. The first thing I do when I get up is wash my face. And then we want to come up with the other events that are happening after the first event. Let's take a look. All right, the first thing I do, I get up, is wash my face. If the first thing on the list, that's number 1. The second thing, the second action that's going to happen is next, I have some breakfast. The first is number 1. Next is number 2. because that's the action that we do after I wash my face. After next. Now, all of these actions are different for each and every one of us. This is a sequence of events, an example of sequencing events, so we know which adverbs to use in which order. Because if we use them out of order, then it no longer makes sense. And we understand the importance of sequencing events when we're telling a story. Because if we're telling a story about our own actions, or we're telling a story about someone else, but there's a series of actions that happen, then we need these adverbs of sequencing to understand the order of events. Otherwise, they're all events happening. We don't know if they're happening at the same time. One happened first, one happened last, and the story no longer makes sense. So since we use the past tenses in storytelling, they're fundamental, we also need other words, adverbs of sequencing, to put these actions in order. Next, next I have some breakfast. While I'm drinking my coffee, I read the newspaper. No, very good, Elena. It's okay if you don't remember the entire sentence. What we're concentrating on now is the order of the adverbs of sequencing. That's what we want to focus on. So now that number one is first, then next, then while. We can go back and take a look at the sentences one more time. So the first thing I do when I get up is wash my face. Next, I have some breakfast. While I'm drinking my coffee, I read the newspaper. After I have my coffee and newspaper, what do I do after that? Because actually the first thing I get up is I drink coffee. Then I wash my face. After that, I take a shower. Actually, if I'm going to eat something, I eat something first, and then I take a shower last. So my last activities before I walk out the door is showering and getting dressed. After that, I take a shower. Very good. While I read the newspaper. So let's go on to our next slide and see if we could finish up this order of events. The first thing I do is wash my face. Next, I have some breakfast. While I'm drinking my coffee, I read the paper. After that, I take a shower. And then lastly, I get dressed and I go to work. Okay, now on this following slide, it says take a walk through the school, go anywhere you'd like. Obviously, because we're all in our own homes, you can't take a walk around the school. And there's no need to walk around your house because maybe you might have an idea of what's happening in different rooms in your house. But I would like you to think about, since in this lesson we're talking about observing, you usually take a shower before breakfast. Okay, yes, as I said before, I try to do everything first, and then the last thing I do before I leave the house is take a shower and get dressed. This way I still feel fresh and clean as I'm walking out the door. I don't feel like I've just eaten or just had a cup of coffee, so I like to have that fresh feeling as I walk out the door. So since in this slide, we're not going to walk around the school, but I would like you just to take a look around you and observe whether you're in your bedroom or in your kitchen or in your living room, wherever you are. Take a look around you and look at what's happening. Even if you're alone, it doesn't matter. There are still things happening simultaneously. And this is where being observant comes into play. Because if you are observing carefully, you'll notice that there are things happening even outside your house, outside the window, while you are participating in this online English lesson? For example, is the sun shining? Is it raining? Is the wind blowing? Is somebody working outside your house? Can you hear your neighbor's television playing? Is your television on? If you have children, what are they doing? If you have a dog or a cat, what is your dog or cat doing? Now, I'm alone right now here, but being observant and looking around the room at where I am, two things that are happening simultaneously. Let's see. While I hear the heater, I hear the radiator. In fact, if you're quiet, you can hear it too. Can you hear that? That's the rumble of the radiator. While I'm participating to this English lesson, my son is Thank you, Elena. Thank you for your honesty and your contribution. While I'm participating in this English lesson, my son is breaking my balls. And I know sometimes children have a tendency to do that, especially when they see that we are observant, that we're concentrating on something else. My children, unfortunately, have a great desire to talk to me. They need my company when I'm in the bathroom, when I'm taking a shower, when I'm on the phone. And if, for example, I say, you know what? Mom needs some mom time. I'm going to lay down just for a few minutes. All of a sudden, everybody needs me. Everybody needs me. People don't talk to me for days. But as soon as I lay down, as soon as I pick up the phone, somebody needs me. I don't know what that is. I can't explain it. So while you're looking around your room, around your surroundings, what is happening around you? And can we form phrases using while and when? For example, while I'm teaching the English lesson outside, the wind is blowing. Now, in this case, I'm using present continuous and present continuous. But let's take, Giacomo says, while I was going downstairs, I saw a new cat in the garden. Thank you, Giacomo. Excellent point. Giacomo has used while with our past continuous and the past simple. So while Giacomo was going downstairs, he saw a new cat in the garden. We have our long action that is interrupted by a short action. Does anyone else have any observations to contribute in our conversation box? We can also talk about our activities this morning. If nothing's happening on around you, for example, think about your activities this morning. How many of you are there in your home? And what was happening simultaneously? In this case, we're now taking things out of the present context, like while I'm teaching English, I see the wind is blowing, and putting it in the past because we want to use while and we want to use when. So if I'm thinking about my activities, my morning activities, and I want to tell you a story about what I did this morning, then how can I use while and when as I tell you a story about my morning? For example, there are many things that I did this morning. I woke up very early, for one, and I spoke to different colleagues on the phone. And I made coffee because I have coffee. The first thing I do is I have a cup of coffee. I also took a shower. I spoke with my children. I prepared my bag to leave my house. I got dressed. I listened to a little bit of music while I was getting ready to calm my nerves because I was a little anxious this morning to teach online. It's a new experience for me. So if I'm going to tell you a story, about my morning activities. How can I use while and how can I use when? And how can I use these adverbs of sequencing to give an order of events as I tell you my story about my morning activity? All right, let's give it a shot. And if you're ready to tell me your story about your morning activities, just put it in our little conversation box so that we can share it with everybody in the group and go over our grammar structure of past simple and past continuous. Okay, the first thing I did this morning when I woke up was turn off my alarm clock. Beep, 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 beep. After that, I rolled over and I went back to sleep. That's the honesty. So the first thing I did was turn off my alarm clock. After that, I rolled over and went back to sleep. When I finally got up, my son was taking a shower. Yes, this morning he decided to get up as well before me. So when I finally got up, my son was taking a shower. My other son decided to have breakfast. While he was preparing his breakfast, his brother was playing video games. So notice my sequencing of events and the fact that there are actions happening simultaneously. So I have one son that's preparing his breakfast and another son that's playing video games at the same time. He was preparing his breakfast and his brother was playing video games. My first son had finished taking a shower. Okay. After that, I prepared my lessons for today. I got dressed and I did my hair. I know it seems that I don't do much with my hair, but I do. If I don't do my hair every day, you will notice the difference. And then I came to work so that I could set up the computer and be with all of you here this afternoon. I know this wasn't a very easy focus because a lot of it relies on talking face to face. But using your past simple and your past continuous is important even in writing. Because as we said, when you read a book, if there are any people here today that are passionate about reading, when you're reading a book, it's all in different past tenses. And we understand the sequencing of events, the chronological sequence of events in the story because of adverbs of sequencing and the different ways that the past tenses are used. Now, in today's focus, we did several things. Going back a little bit, we started by being observant. So we took a few moments to examine an image and to tell what we saw, the actual objects we saw in an image. After we talked about what we saw, we concentrated. Oh, thank you, Elena. Thank you very much. Elena shares with us today. First, I got up early. While I was having breakfast, I was watching the news on TV. Then I prepared some vegetables for lunch. After that, I had a shower. Next, I had my online English lesson. Fantastic, Elena. Good job. Giacomo shares with us today. First, I had a shower. While I was having a shower, my son called me from the other room. As we said, if we're in the bathroom, if we're having a shower, that's when our children need us the most. After my shower, I had breakfast with my family. After that, I started working. Notice how in these two accounts of morning activities, we have our While with our past continuous, so we know that we use while with long activities. We use when for short activities. And we have our adverbs of sequencing. So first, then, next. Excellent job, Elena. And then first, while, after my shower, and then after that. So by reading these two accounts of morning activities, we understand the sequencing of events. And that is all done through the adverbs of sequencing and our when and while. So listen, thank you everybody for being here this afternoon. It was great to hear from everybody again today. So this afternoon we talked about observations. We practiced using, let me go back here for 1 minute. We practiced using the past simple and past continuous, which we know that we can use in the same sentences, especially when we're telling stories. And by using these different past tenses, we can also use sequencing adverbs to give an order of events in our stories. Okay, so listen, if no one has any other questions for today, I'm going to sign off for now. And I want to thank everybody for joining the group and have a wonderful afternoon. And I'll see you again next time. Okay, everybody, take care and see you soon.